Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit more serious. Of course you want it right now, Zazzy. So is going to be a little more serious. I have decided finally, after a long time of talking about it and thinking about it, that I'm going to be telling my personal bullying story. So how I'm going to do this, it's going to be in two parts because I do have two parts of this story. Isn't that great? But before we begin, and I can't believe I have to do this, but I will anyway, there are some disclosures. This is my personal story from my viewpoint. Obviously I can't just call it my bullies and be like, hey, what's your perspective on this? So take everything through my eyes. If I say something that seems not really inappropriate but like kind of edgy or out there, again, it's just my viewpoint, where I'm coming from, my guesses. So, you know, just leave it at that. And with that, I also have notes too, so if I look down, that's why. So yeah, let us go ahead and get started. So to open up, my bullying story begins in 6th grade, and I went to a private school. When I was in elementary school, my elementary went from preschool through 5th grade, and then at the end of 5th grade we went from our elementary school, which is where I'm an educare assistant now, just by the way, to an intermediary school. And that school had all, well, not all, but the kids that decided to go to it from all of the elementary schools in my area. So it would have been way bigger, and my mom decided between that and just that private school, you're supposed to get a better education, that we would go that route. So I went to one, and yeah, we couldn't have been farther from the truth on this, and more on that later. But you know, I went in, there was a girl that I heard, I can't remember how I learned it, but she liked playing Nancy Drew games, I liked playing Nancy Drew games, she liked to read, I liked to read, so I thought that we would be good friends. No. So, you know, I tried putting myself out there, saying hi to people in the hallway, you know, introducing myself, but for some reason from the beginning, everybody just seemed to not like me. I don't know if they could smell the scholarship student waft coming from me, because at this point my mom and my dad were getting ready to get divorced. So even still at that point, I needed a scholarship to go there. But at one point, and I don't know how this all came around, the queen, I thought that I was going to be not really popular, but just kind of liked, because the queen bee kind of let me into her group. But later on it seemed that wasn't the case, because she was reading the book series called The Clique, which I didn't read at that point, but I did later on, and she gave us all nicknames based on the characters in the book, and mine was Claire, because as she said, I was shy and sweet like she was. Later when I read the book, it turns out that Claire is the one that the clique sees, tries to come in and make herself popular, nobody likes her. See what you did there. So yeah, anyway, also during 6th grade, something I came to find out later, we had a big trip to Huntsville, Alabama, to space camp. You know, this is something that as soon as you started that school, basically you looked forward to going to space camp in 6th grade. I came in 6th grade, just found out about it, and I was like, okay, cool. So, you know, it was a lot of fun, it was interesting. I love You know, well, not at that time, but now I love space and stars, so, you know, it was fun. But little did we know that there was going to be an award ceremony at the end of it. And comes to find out, they had one big award. I forget the name of it. I'll have it on the screen because I always want to say Gary Cooper, but that's an actor, not the... Is it Glenn Cooper? But it's named after an astronaut. And it was a really big award. And basically it went to the person that, you know, was the most enthusiastic, but also, you know, step back and let others take certain roles. And, you know, like being a team player, like it was a big deal. And it turns out little old me won that award. You know, the girl that came in just finding out about space camp that year. Shock, gasp. And literally I looked out into the crowd, all my teachers and everything. My mom was the only one smiling. Everyone else was looking like, how did she win? She just found out about space camp. How did she win? What? So that didn't really help anything. And I'm not saying that to brag. Like literally, that is what happened. So yeah, my mom is just sitting there like, my daughter won. And I know that they think I'm weird, or I was weird, because later on one of my friends was on that trip and somehow we started talking about space camp. She was like, oh yeah, I thought you were weird, just because I was quiet. But she was the one that chased squirrels around. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. Everybody congratulated me like, I'm so happy for you. I can't believe you won the award and all that. So 6th grade passes, then we come to 7th grade. Yay. So during this time is when Vera Bradley started to become a craze. Why, I don't know. I even had a couple of her bags, but even then I was like, no why. Anyway, that's beside the point. So again, this was an opportunity where my mom was like, you know, just smile, be friends with everyone, just be friendly, rise above everything, yada yada. So I told this girl that I liked her bag. It was a Vera Bradley bag. I liked the style of it. And so she started telling me where she got it. We were having a full conversation in math. And right behind her sat the queen bee, who was one of her friends. And I saw this look pass on her face, like, how dare you talk to her. She literally butts in the middle of our conversation to get her to stop talking to me. Like, maybe that's not what happened, but that seemed like too much of a coincidence. Like, too much. So, from this point on, the bullying was mostly like them ignoring me, trying to butt me out of the picture. Then it started a little bit more. Whenever we had substitutes, everybody would call out my name as Lindsay. You know, that's normal. I get that a lot. And I would just raise my hand and say, excuse me, it's actually pronounced Lindsay. And everybody would laugh at that. Why? I don't know. I don't know why that is so funny that I corrected people on how to pronounce my name, but apparently that was the biggest joke to our class. Like, can someone please explain to me why that's funny? I mean, like, I'm not condoning bullying at all because of my experience, but I mean, find something better to make fun of me for, you know? Like, make it make sense, because that clearly doesn't. So then the queen bee's older sister and her friends got in on this. And on some of the bus rides, like to and from school, they would stuff trash into my purse when I wasn't looking, and I would look, and you know, there'd be a bunch of stuff in my bag, and they would just laugh and laugh when I finally noticed. But here's the thing, it seemed like they knew how to get to me, because if you've been around like the channel for a long time, or even know me personally, purses are my thing. Like, I love bags. I always have. At one point I had 60 bags, but that's a different story for a different day. Like, I love them. My mom got me into them. You know, she was at this point, like, I think, was it this point, or was I was in high school? But anyway, like, she gave me one of her Gucci bags that she bought for herself, you know, when she was my age. And so this is when I started to kind of get into fashion, but more of handbags, because private school uniforms, you can't really do anything with those. And we could only afford the lesser designer brands, you know, Dooney & Burke, Coach, Betsy Johnson, things like that. And, you know, she would buy them for me, either like for good grades. She loves me. Like, this is the type of person my mom is. She loves someone, she buys them things that they love. And so, you know, these were like $200 to $400 bags for her being a single mom. Like, that was a big deal. So for them to put stuff in my purse like that was, yeah. So also during this time is when I discovered Confessions of a Shopaholic and started my quest to be Becky. Still haven't found my Luke though. Wonder where he is. But yeah, I started reading those books at this time, and I started to really like fashion. This is when I really started wanting a Louis bag and everything. So all of this came to an extreme when one day I was sitting at lunch with a friend that I'd actually made and was still my friend at this point. And all of a sudden I felt like I kept hearing things hitting the desk, and then I felt something cold hit me. And I looked, and it was the Queen Bee's sister and her friends throwing food at us. Like they were flicking peas. So, you know, I pretended to gather my trash and went to the trash can and very slightly, like, just went to the teachers and said, hey, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but they're throwing food at us. A pea almost hit me in the eye. You know, maybe come check it out. And then the principal called my mom that day and was like,
oh, they're doing that just because they're jealous. Don't worry, something's going to be done.
Nothing was done. And then, you know, nothing was done at this point because the Queen Bee and her sister were also part of the basketball team, and the basketball team was really good and made the school a lot of money. And again, I went to a private school that, you know, lives on donations, any money that they can make, and I was a scholarship student, so you think anything's going to be done? No. Nothing was done. So, again, remember, this is a private Christian school. That was the thing. Like, the name the word Christian is in the name of the school. And I say that not to try to like push religion on you or anything, but just keep that in mind. As Christians, you know, we're not supposed to be obsessed with money. We're supposed to trust in the Lord to help us through financial trouble. So you think that the school would live by this, but no. In 9th grade was my last year there, and that's when I started getting terrible, terrible migraines. This is a blessing that I have been blessed with from my family. They run in my family. My aunt gets them so bad that sometimes she has to go to the hospital to get medicine for them. And so this is really when they started to skyrocket because of stress and the bullying and just me being there in general. And one day I got a migraine. It was really bad. It was to the point I fell asleep in class, and that is the only time in my entire life that I've ever fallen asleep in class. And thankfully it was in my English class where my English teacher knew me, and also she has migraines too, so she kind of knew what was up, but I later explained it to her and we were all good. But I went home that day on the bus and I threw up because my head hurt so bad. And then after that, everybody started making fun of me for throwing up. I'd hear gagging sounds around me and laughing, and yeah. You know what the school said about everything when my mom went to talk to the principal about stuff?
Well, we can't really do anything because the Bible says not to put one person up against another, which is kind of what this situation is. So it's just she said, they said, so we can't really do anything.
I think in actuality what they meant is you and your daughter are here on scholarship, and the people that are bullying her bring us most of the money for our school. So we can't do anything because we would lose our cash cow. But we can lose you. Bye. Needless to say, I left. I went to a public high school after that. I learned a heck of a lot more than I did because the education at that school was not good. I was actually behind a little bit. Like, I remember 10th grade, I went to my geometry class and they were talking about stuff that you should have done last year, and I'm like, I haven't done this at all. I don't know what you're talking about. My earring. Only was I bullied like crazy, I was also behind academically, so my mom's plan didn't turn out for the better. You know, that's all hindsight now. So, yeah. One of the big things, and I kind of talk about this in my video for it, but one of the big things that inspired my Alan Alda tattoo was around that time is when I discovered MASH, and that would honestly be my solace at the end of the day. I'd have a really crappy day, I'd come home, do my homework, and then me and my mom would watch MASH on DVD, and that would probably be the first time I laughed all day and actually had fun and relaxed because I was so tense. Like, even to this day, I take anxiety medicine partly because of that, but I had to take an antacid every day for like 2 or 3 years after my experience from there because my stomach hurt so bad because of all the stress and anxiety from it. So, yeah, to this day, I have social anxiety, partly from that, partly from the second part that I'm going to talk about. I don't really like to correct people when they pronounce my name incorrectly. I'm starting to get over that because it makes my mom mad, and I don't, but I can't do it because I always like say, my name's Lindsay, and I tense because I get ready for the laughter. And yeah, it was not a good time. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. If I ever have kids, no matter how rich I may be, I probably will not put them in a private school because of my experience. But that is part 1. Part 2 will be about my freshman year of college, as well as my reasons why we need more bullying advocacy in schools. Again, all of this was from my own experience. If, you know, maybe I made things up, not made things up, but like exaggerated things in my head, but that's just how I felt at the time, and looking back, like retrospect, is what I've come up with. So leave your comments down below if you've had similar experiences. Hopefully part 2 will be out soon, and with that, I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.
All that's left is a window to my soul. Come and get it.